What's up, nutrition nerds, and welcome back to another video. Today's video is one of my most requested topics, and it's one I've been really looking forward to doing. But I'll be straight up with you from the start. I don't have a magic answer which will make you suddenly lose weight or make your menopausal symptoms disappear. However, I will give you some potential strategies and advice, such as types of exercise you could focus on or changes you could make to your diet, which might help with weight and symptom control, but will also benefit other areas of your health which can change due to the menopause. So let's get going. Okay, so this video is going to be all things menopause, and there's going to be nutrition and exercise advice here because it's all tied in together. If you're new to this channel, then hi, I'm James. If you want to know a bit more about me and my background, both in medicine and nutrition, then I've put all of my information in the description for you, which you can find below this video. If you feel like you want to know a bit more about any of the topics that I talk about, then just let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. Alright, so I'm sure you already know this, but let's just start with a quick hormonal 101 for the menopause to give some context to what we're going to be talking about. In a normal menstrual cycle, you get a change in hormones which help to stimulate egg release and help to prepare the uterus as a possible site of pregnancy. And if there's no pregnancy, then to settle things back down again. You get changes in estrogen, progesterone, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, and it looks something like this. Now when we get into the menopausal period, your hormones change a bit, and instead it looks something more like this. You can see that you get these fluctuations of estrogen and progesterone, and it's these fluctuations which most likely account for a lot of the symptoms and changes that your body undergoes. For example, the hot flushes, change in mood, and poor sleep. Towards the end of the menopause and then after the menopause, your hormone profile will look more like this, and you can see there's a decline in estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone are responsible for heaps of different processes in the body. Of course, they're involved in female reproductive health, but they're also involved in brain function and protection, bone regulation, cholesterol regulation, fluid balance, muscle regulation, basically a lot. So the advice and strategies which I'm going to talk about are tied into these. As the level of these hormones drop, there are things that you can focus on to help alleviate the effects. Now it's important to say at this point that it's always worth checking in with your doctor to make sure that the symptoms that you're experiencing are definitely related to the menopause and not to something else. And if your doctor agrees that they probably are related to the menopause, then try some of the strategies that I talk about to see if they help you out. Now we've got to start somewhere, and protein is a great topic in my opinion. The reason why I love talking about protein so much is that it's so commonly misunderstood, but it can have a big impact on some of the other things that we're going to talk about and really help menopausal women out. The crux of it is this. It's all too common for people to eat most of their protein with their evening meal and overall have quite a low protein intake. You know, small breakfast or lunch and a bigger evening meal to round the day out. Sound familiar? Now the current evidence suggests that this probably isn't the best approach. Spacing your protein intake out regularly over the day and eating a good amount in each meal seems to be the optimal option. The reason is that this seems to be the best way of eating to stimulate something called muscle protein synthesis, which is a fancy way of saying building or maintaining muscle. And maintaining muscle mass really helps with weight management. This is a core part of some of the other things that I'm going to talk about too. Compared to the average person's protein intake, it's probably worth upping your intake slightly around and after the menopause too. I've linked a video that I've done at the top of the screen on protein intake as we age, and if you want a bit more info on the topic, then you can watch that. But ultimately, it's likely that we all need to eat a bit more protein as we get older. Somewhere around 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal is a great goal to aim for, and it helps you to then spread it across the day. If you're unsure as to whether eating more protein in your diet is safe for you, then you can always check in with your doctor to get their opinion. However, I do talk about this in more detail in the Protein as We Age video. So aim to spread your protein intake evenly over the course of the day with about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And for most people, this is safe and sensible. As always, it is all about balance, and we'll talk about that later. But protein isn't the be all and end all, but it does help a great deal. This links directly to the protein topic. I get a lot of questions about losing weight whilst building muscle. An increased protein intake combined with strength training is an excellent way to do this, and strength training is extremely important for menopausal and postmenopausal women. The reason here is to do with that decline in estrogen. This decline makes it harder to build and maintain muscle, so the focus on heavier strength training is necessary. But it's also important because that decline in estrogen can make women more susceptible to osteoporosis when they have brittle bones and are more at risk of a fracture. Strength training helps reduce this risk though. By strength training under a heavy load, your body responds by creating newer, stronger, healthy bone tissue. So adding strength training, ideally a couple of times a week, and we're talking relative to your current ability, is an excellent idea for the menopausal and postmenopausal woman. And an added bonus? Muscle tissue burns more calories than fatty tissue, so having more muscle is no bad thing there either. So we've talked about strength training, but what other types of training should you do? Now, your classic endurance training, easy cycling, swimming or running, is still great, and I would encourage you to keep on doing it. But I would also suggest prioritizing some high intensity training into your week. And this is because it follows a similar principle to strength training. When we're older, and for women especially, our ability to carry out easy endurance training is already pretty good, and it doesn't decline dramatically if we maintain it. However, what we do lose is that top end speed and power, and that's from both a muscular and neurological point of view. Stimulating your muscles and your nerves to work hard is a great idea for your fitness and for your health, and I would really encourage it. Keep taxing your body by doing high intensity training like sprints or plyometrics. Essentially, explosive movements are what we want here, which is why it's important to differentiate it from your classic easy endurance training. Make sure you do ease into that though, especially if you're new to it, and if needed, get in touch with a local fitness professional to help you out. In order to do these strength and high intensity sessions, you need the fuel for it. I've talked about this before, but I am a big fan of carbohydrates, and my advice doesn't change for the menopausal lady. I would strongly suggest that you keep carbohydrates in your diet because you need them to be able to fuel this high intensity and strength training. If you'd prefer to eat less of them though, just because you prefer eating less, then I would suggest prioritizing a before and after training meal which focuses on carbohydrates, and then drop them down at other times. In order to see the benefits of your hard training, you need to make sure that you recover properly too. The truth is that compared to 20 years ago, you're not going to recover as quickly and might find that you need longer. So make sure that you prioritize food after a training session and eat plenty of fresh fruits and veggies and get a good amount of sleep where possible. You may also find that you need more rest days than usual, or for example, if you used to do 3 hard weeks of training and then 1 easy week, you might have to change that to having 2 hard weeks of training and then an easy week. That's okay, and you will feel the benefits of it if you give yourself adequate time to recover. So let's talk about overall calorie intake. Does it need to change during the menopause and then afterwards? Probably, yeah. It's hard to say, but we do know that your metabolism changes during this period. It's hard to say exactly how much. However, what I've found to be a pretty good ballpark number is to say, compared to 20 years ago, you probably need about 200 calories less per day to maintain your weight. Now, this really isn't a lot. It's essentially the same as a small snack. Is this change likely to be the real cause of weight gain or loss? Truthfully, no. So let's talk about weight loss. It's another common question theme. Can I lose weight during or after the menopause? And will losing weight help to control my symptoms? The quick and simple answer is yes, and I really want to hammer that home. You absolutely can lose weight during and after the menopause, and it probably will help your symptoms too. Now, I have some private clients, and I also help run a vegetarian weight loss course with Hurry the Food Up. What I can tell you from both the science and from working with clients is that while the menopause can cause unpleasant and unhelpful symptoms which might make weight management feel more difficult, it is very unlikely to be the true cause of weight loss or weight gain. It is much more likely that overall eating habits and activity levels are the true cause here. But that's a completely different topic, and it's not something realistically that I can cover in this video as well. Now, I'll caveat that by saying, as before, you do need a little bit less food per day compared to some years ago. But commonly, it's a specific part of your diet, like poor eating habits, which are the true cause of weight gain or an inability to lose weight. This is where it becomes much more important to talk about mental triggers, stressors, and really getting honest with yourself about what you're eating and why. But again, I really want to reinforce and encourage you that yes, you absolutely can lose weight during and after the menopause, and I want to give you the confidence that you can. So how can losing weight help with symptoms? The likely reason that losing weight helps with symptom control is because it can take you out of what's called a pro-inflammatory state. Essentially, when you're overweight, your body is irritated and a whole heap of bodily systems aren't working quite as they normally would. And so losing weight can help with that. While I can't promise it, from experience with clients, being in a healthy weight range does seem to help control some of the symptoms of the menopause. Now, one of the areas that we could then talk about is calorie counting. In general, I'm not the biggest fan of calorie counting, but it does have its merits. If you're struggling to lose weight and you can't afford to hire a nutritionist, then it might be worth counting your calories for a couple of days just to see what kind of food you're eating and how many calories you're consuming. It can be quite eye-opening to understand the amount of calories in your food, and it might just help you for a few days to then get you back on track. I want to encourage you to have a good relationship with your food though, so if you are considering counting calories, then I've linked a video at the top of the screen which I think you should watch before you do, because I go into this in more detail. So to conclude on this weight loss section, you definitely can lose weight during or after the menopause. Your body does need slightly fewer calories than it did, say, 20 years ago, but this isn't hugely significant, and being in a healthy weight range may help to reduce some of the symptoms of the menopause. Vitamin D and calcium are important for humans generally, but they're even more important for menopausal and postmenopausal women. Vitamin D helps us to absorb calcium in our diet, and it also plays a function in other bodily systems like the immune system. We get very little vitamin D in our diet, and instead we create it with help from the sun. My advice for ladies around the menopause and afterwards is to supplement 10 micrograms of vitamin D per day. This is a safe dose and reduces the risk of vitamin D deficiency, ensuring that you're able to absorb an adequate amount of calcium from your diet. Calcium is more important for females because of its link to bone health. Because menopausal and postmenopausal women are more at risk of osteoporosis and bone fractures, they have an increased need for calcium in their diet. This is what the British Dietetic Association recommend for daily calcium intake, and I've linked this in the description for you. Just to be clear, you don't have to get that amount in every day, but it's a great goal to aim for. Way! Superfood! They do everything. They make you lose weight, put on muscle, decrease inflammation, sleep better. Or do they? The truth is that there's no such thing as a superfood, and I would advise you not to believe it if you see it written down on packaging or on advertising. Foods are good for different reasons, and all foods contain different amounts of nutrients. If there was one single food that was all we needed, then we'd know about it already. The best advice from a food point of view is to eat a healthy, balanced diet, full of fresh fruits and veggies, whole grain carbohydrates, spreading your protein intake out over the day, essentially doing the basics right. This is a much more powerful tool than any superfood. Instead of just focusing on a superfood, treat your body to healthy, delicious food all of the time. I would also say that from experience with clients, having regular eating patterns with foods that you know that you get on well with can be really helpful for controlling some symptoms of the menopause. So if you can get into a good routine with your food, then it's likely that you'll see some benefit from that as well. Another common question, should I fast? And my answer is probably not. Most of the evidence for things like intermittent fasting is male dominated, and I don't think it can be translated particularly well to female athletes or menopausal women. I would encourage regular eating over the course of the day, and until evidence suggests otherwise, think that this is the best option. It helps to keep you full and satisfied, it helps to fuel your training, and it encourages good eating habits, which is a winner for me. It's not concrete, but some evidence does suggest that fasting for women can lead to more fat storage because of increased levels of stress hormones. So for now, that's another reason why I would suggest not to intermittent fast. So that means breakfast before your workouts. And we're done. That was quite a lot there. We went through protein intake, strength training, other exercises to consider, weight loss and calorie intake, calcium and vitamin D, superfoods, and fasting. Whew! As my honest recommendation, I would advise focusing on strength training and protein intake as priorities. They can make such a big difference for the menopausal and post-menopausal woman, and they're so commonly overlooked. But if you are having trouble losing weight, then I would also recommend learning about what food you eat and how much you eat in a day, and consider whether your habits stop you from losing weight. Often when we get honest with ourselves, we learn a lot. So that is a wrap. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, then give the video a thumbs up and press subscribe to stay up to date with everything that I release, and make sure you press the notification icon too. If you did find it useful and you think others might find it useful as well, then I would really appreciate it if you shared it with them. If you've got any questions, then please let me know in the comments and I will be happy to answer them. So until next time, see ya.